I'm turning 30 years old this year and it feels like a milestone. I mean, I guess every decade does feel like a milestone, but 30 to me is the first real milestone as an adult where there are actual expectations. I mean, of course, when we're 20 years old, we are adults, but it's not like there are so many expectations at that point, right? We are basically just getting out of university. But at 30, some people might think, we should have a super career, we should have a house, we should have a car, and so on. So I thought, let me share 5 major financial milestones that I think you should try and achieve by 30 years old, and I made it realistic. It's not, the peer pressure that we feel from other people about, having to own a house, having to own a BMW, otherwise you're a failure. So just look at these 5 things, and even if you don't have it yet, just work on getting it done as soon as possible. Let's get to it. So the first milestone is, of course, the most basic one, which is to have an emergency fund of 3 to 6 months. You can choose anywhere between that range, but I'm just going to say it right now. By 30 years old, you should aim to have 6 months worth of your expenses saved up, and you want to have this saved in a separate bank account from your normal everyday spending account. At 22 years old, let's say if there's a problem with your car and the repair costs 1,000 ringgit. It might feel extremely painful at that age, and maybe you can't afford it, maybe you have to ask your parents to help you pay that bill. But at 30 years old, if you have a 1,000 ringgit car repair cost, it should just be, a minor inconvenience. You should not be needing to borrow money or go into debt just to pay for these small unexpected expenses. This is why we want to have an emergency fund. Achieving this will really give you so much financial peace of mind. I really think that this being just the first step in your financial journey, it is so extremely important and will give you so much comfort, knowing that if there are any unexpected expenses, like let's say medical bills, car repairs I was talking about, or even let's say if you were to lose your job, at least you know that you can survive for the next 6 months pretty comfortably. The next major money milestone that you want to have by 30 years old is to have a positive net worth, meaning basically everything that's just more than zero. So the way you're going to calculate your net worth is you're going to add up all of your assets and then you're going to minus it by all of your liabilities or all of your debt or loans. So assets are things like, for example, cash in your bank account, your investments, a house if you already have one, even a car, I would consider that an asset. Whereas your liabilities are basically any loans that you have. So for example, for me, it's PTPTN and I also have a car loan. I do include EPF in my calculations for my assets. I know some people say that EPF shouldn't be counted, but to me, it's still your money, right? So it should be included in your net worth calculation, but it's completely up to you. Most of us will start our 20s with a negative net worth, right? It only makes sense. For example, for me, right after I graduated from uni, I immediately had my PTPN loan that I had to pay off. That is over 30,000 ringgit. And then soon after that, I think 1-2 years later, I had to buy my first car. So trying to flip from a negative to a positive net worth would be a major financial milestone for a lot of people before they hit 30 years old. Crossing that zero line for the first time, right? Going from negative to zero or just slightly above zero gives you a lot of comfort knowing that you could do it, and this is where you can start pushing for a net worth where it's higher and higher and higher moving forward. Personally, for me, I did get a bit lucky because my income was good-ish early in my 20s, so I managed to turn my net worth positive, I think somewhere around 23 or 24 years old. The next major milestone you want to have by the time you hit 30 years old is to make it a habit to save or invest 20% of your income every single month. So like I said, you want this to be a habit. You want it to be automatic rather than you just, saving whatever is left at the end of every month. We know that whenever that is the case, most of the times, the amount that you have at the end of the month is close to zero. There is an extremely easy way for you to do this. Just set up auto-recurring transfers or deposits into your investments every single month as soon as you get your salary. So for example, for me, I have all of my auto debit set up for my investments, for my savings, as well as to contribute towards ASB at the start of every month. So I don't even have to think about it. It all just gets sorted out on its own. Then I spend the rest of my cash however I want to, and if there are any leftovers at the end of the month, which is a good thing, then I will just save and invest even more. This is where your wealth building phase starts, and this is where your net worth begins to go higher and higher rather than just aiming simply for it to be positive, right? And we want to lock this habit down early on, right? At least before we are 30 years old, because the older we get, the more commitments we have, the more difficult it is going to be for us to start this habit, right? Let's say you are 35 years old, you have a family, you have all these commitments, a car, a house, daycare for your kids. It's gonna feel extremely difficult for you to contribute then 20% to your savings. Whereas if you've been doing it all along throughout your 20s, you will find a way to adapt. Moving on, This is maybe a slightly debatable one. Some people might not agree, but I think before you hit 30 years old, you should have sufficient insurance coverage to make sure that you are protected as well as the people who rely on you. When I was in my early 20s, I remember I just started working and I was discussing with my colleagues who are around my age, and we were all thinking, you're not such a huge fan of insurance, 150, 200 ringgit extra a month at that age was a lot. And I would rather use that money to spend, right? Enjoy my life. Or maybe even just save it myself. That's what I would tell myself, right? And I was thinking, I'm young, I'm healthy, what's the worst that can happen, right? But one thing that I did tell myself was that I would get insurance by the time I was 26 years old. I don't know why 26. I think I was reading somewhere about how, after 26, insurance becomes more expensive. I don't know if that's true. I don't think it is. But anyway, I decided that I would do that. That was my goal. And in the end, I did end up getting insurance at 26 years old. The thing is, the older we get, the higher the risk and the more we have to lose, right? Even if you have an emergency fund, that's good. But if you get admitted into hospital, let's say you go for private medical bills these days, they are so expensive. And I don't think 3 to 6 months worth of expenses will be enough to cover that. Imagine this, right? This was actually my biggest nightmare back then while I was trying to save up money and build my net worth. Imagine you worked so hard, right? Trying to grow your income, saving your money every single month, just to build up, let's say, 50,000 ringgit in your bank account. You feel good. But one day, something happens to you, you have to get admitted to hospital, and this entire 50,000 ringgit gets used just to pay that bill. So all your years of hard work vanishes just like that. And that is why I think insurance is so important. Some people might think, I already have company insurance, so I'm fine, right? Because my company does give me some, inpatient treatment, which I did think myself as well back then. And this is true to an extent, but you need to check how much coverage your company gives you because most of the times it's not that much. I remember back when I was working, it was less than 100,000 ringgit in total, which again, these days, it's barely enough. But if you are someone who's working in a company who gives you a lot in terms of your coverage, so let's say they're giving you 2 million, 3 million ringgit, then yeah, maybe you do not need medical insurance, but you just gotta remember that down the line, if you decide to leave this job for another job and that next job doesn't give you the same perks, then you will have to again consider getting yourself medical insurance. And then if you're someone who is married with kids, or maybe even you have parents or siblings who rely on your income for them to actually survive, then you must consider getting life insurance because if anything were to happen to you and you cannot provide an income for them anymore, they're going to be in deep trouble. So this is why, this is another aspect of insurance that you need to consider by the time you hit 30 years old. Again, I don't know why I have the thinking that after a certain age, insurance becomes more expensive. I don't know if it's actually true. If any of you guys are insurance agents or if you guys work in insurance companies, let us know in the comments below. But yeah, I think generally or typically speaking, with insurance, the earlier you get it, the better because, we never know when anything's going to happen to us, right? And another thing is, because most of the times the insurance that people get is investment linked, the earlier we start, the more we invest, the more the residual value that we will have in our accounts. And then the final milestone that we want to hit by 30 years old is to start investing or start diversifying our net worth globally. Maybe you have never invested actually throughout your whole life, or maybe you have dabbled in some Malaysian stocks after hearing some friends or colleagues talk at the office. But by the time you hit this age, especially as your net worth is starting to grow, you will want to start diversifying your entire portfolio, and that is including foreign investments. I mean, we already save almost all of our money in Malaysian ringgit. We already have EPF. Some of you guys, Bumi Putra, already have ASB. So it doesn't hurt, right, for us to look outside of Malaysia when it comes to our investments. And when we invest outside of Malaysia, we are also diversifying our currency holdings, right? So for example, if you were to own shares of Maybank, that's good, right? You are investing your money, but Maybank shares are denominated in Malaysian ringgit. Whereas if you invested into, let's say, JP Morgan in the US, that investment is denominated in USD. Now, I'm not saying the Malaysian ringgit is bad or the Malaysian ringgit is going to depreciate, but it's always nice to sort of diversify our holdings. And another plus point is that foreign markets, especially the US, have been performing extremely well. And unfortunately, they have been performing a lot better than our local stock market. For example, the S&P 500 in the US, it has returned, I think right now, it is like 12 or 13% on average every single year for the last 10 years. Of course, it doesn't mean that this will repeat over the next 10 years, but again, like I said, it doesn't hurt to invest there because they have some of the largest companies in the world. In general, I think this is about that age where we want to start moving on from just being savers to being investors, right? Because like I said, the more money you have, the more your money can go to work for you and generate you even more return. So you don't want to just put everything in, under your pillow or even just in a savings account, because that won't earn you that much. But even if, let's say, despite all of this, despite all of the data and stuff, you still don't want or you don't feel comfortable investing in foreign assets, then I think that's completely fine, right? It doesn't mean that you failed this milestone, but I would say one thing that you should do is that you should still invest your money, even if that means locally, right? Put it in ASB, top up your EPF if you want to, even though I'm not such a huge fan of it, or invest in local stocks on the Bursa stock market, or even buy an ETF, right? It's completely up to you. Just start investing your money. Anyway, if any of you guys are interested in investing in either US or Malaysian stocks or ETFs, then check out Mumu. I'll leave the link to sign up in the description of this video, so that when you guys sign up using that link, you will get some exclusive rewards when you sign up and make your first deposit. So if you're still in your 20s, these are the, to me at least, 5 major financial milestones that you want to work towards before you hit the age of 30. Again, like I said, it's not a fancy house. It's not a new BMW. Those are not real financial milestones that you should hit. Those are just things that your friends say, so don't get peer pressured into it. And if you're above 30 but you still haven't hit these goals, don't panic. Of course, it's nice to hit these things before 30 years old. It's nice to hit these things before 20 years old. But if you're already in a difficult situation, everyone's scenario is different, then it's completely fine. Just work towards it as soon as possible. Try to put in more effort to sort of catch up. So let me know in the comments of this video, how many of these 5 major milestones have you already hit? Thanks for watching this video to the end, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Give me a huge thumbs up if you did. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. See you guys in the next one. Peace out.